why do I never feel like I'm good enough?
Why
Like
do
why do we do that?
Yeah, and we all do. Sorry, we all do. Everybody gets that thought at some point where I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not rich enough, I don't have
Hmm.
enough, skill, whatever it be, this not enough
Yeah,
affects all of us. And the problem is though, it can really create, and there's research, unhappiness and hold us back from growth or even reaching our dreams and goals, procrastination. And it really can affect us in not so good ways. And it's really
yeah,
important to shift out of that belief because essentially it's just a belief. And whatever you tell yourself is what you will believe. And if
mm,
you're talking in a more negative, not enough kind of version, it impacts you tremendously. And we need to shift out of that. And that's what we're going to talk about today on how to rewire the brain, shift out of it, and why we even think this way. Welcome. I'm Heike Fallon, and I'm a personal high performance coach, and I help my clients with their self leadership, leading themselves first to be better leaders and show up better in the different roles they have. And it's very important to feel and talk in a more positive way about ourselves.
hi, I'm Shannon Passalacqua, and I am a high performance coach as well. And I specialize in helping women heal after miscarriages. And I think this is a very important conversation. I can always relate it back to loss and miscarriages and grief and the trauma that surrounds that. But I do find it interesting that most of us will, at some point in our lives, feel like we are not enough. And I think there's a lot to it. For me, when that happens, I think the biggest thing that I had to ask myself was, what story am I telling myself? And I think that's such a big question that kind of transformed the way I think, um, because we're shaped by stories that we tell ourselves through our lives, and we're shaped by things that happen through our lives, and we kind of latch on to those ideas or those events, and we think that's who we are. And so when we show up to something or when we think we're not good enough at something, I think that's when we really need to stop and question, where is this coming from? What is the story that I've been telling myself for 20, 30 years? And is it true?
Yeah, I, totally. I love that because the first is being aware of that we're
Mhm.
talking in that way to ourselves. Oftentimes we may not realize that we we are having these thoughts of not enough. And and that can be because it's not always phrased like that. It could be like, why did I fail in this? Or, oh man, that was my mistake. Why didn't I do better? That's a
Mhm.
not enough, right?
Right.
Why didn't I do better than this? I should know. That
And
is it.
that's a great time to say, is that actually true? Like, is that true? And if that, where's that thought coming from? And if you really stop and give yourself time to think about that, like deep, you can probably find the root cause or the root story that that's coming from. Did you grow up in a family that believes, certain things, and that's what you were told your whole life?
Yep.
And so that's what the story that you've been telling yourself, that I'm not enough to be able to do this. And it's, if you stop and question it and say, okay, well, I've been told that story, but I don't think that's actually true. I think I actually can do that.
Yep. Yep. A lot is it definitely can come from cultural as well as your environment, how you grew up,
Mhm.
and how other people may have
Shaped.
believed in you and shared what they think. They think, ah, you can't do that. You're not smart enough for that, or you're not, you're not good enough for that. And you start believing that over time.
Mhm.
But also, essentially, talking where it's coming from is generally our brain is more focused on negative than positive. And that's because it's trying to keep us safe and alive. And so it will first kind of go with caution
Mhm.
and first go with like, okay, let's be safe and
Assess the danger.
assess the danger. And so we're wired a little bit more towards the negative. And that's important to know, because we have to be more actively shifting those thoughts into a more positive kind of phrasing. And we'll talk about that a little later, how to shift these phrases, because we believe ourselves the most. And if we keep doing that too much and over again, that can, again, like lead to other consequences. So, like you said, early experiences can be a problem. It can be also trauma. You may have had events that are going on. Like I know you deal with women that went through miscarriage. That's a very traumatic event, but it can be other events too that are traumatic that make us not feel enough.
Mhm. Yeah, and a miscarriage can definitely do that to you when, you know, as women, I think we put a lot of emphasis on us as people who can reproduce. And there's there's a lot of expectation. And so when we as this is how I felt. So I'll speak from myself and from some of the women I've talked to. As a woman who kept having miscarriages, I kept saying to myself, how can I not do the one thing that I'm supposed to be able to do? Right? Like as a woman, I'm supposed to be able to have children, and I can't do that. Why can't I do that? And so then there's a lot of like rumination on that of, well, why can't I do the thing that I'm supposed to do? And then you just start getting down on yourself. And that's when, and I couldn't do it at the time because I
Yep.
didn't know this at the time. I didn't know it until later. But when hard things come up now, I ask myself, is that true? Like, is that actually is that going to be what actually happens? You know, like, yes, I had a miscarriage, but is that who I am for the rest of my life? And now I've learned to say to myself, okay, everything is going to work out. I don't know how, I don't know when,
Yep.
but this is not who I am. My miscarriage is not who I am. And it was reteaching myself for, okay, is that true that I can't have children? Or is it true that I had a miscarriage this one time or six? And
Which makes it harder, right? When it's
right, when it keeps
repetitive.
happening
It
over and
keeps, if
over.
something keeps happening, obviously makes it harder because we think there is
Yes.
proof that it
Yeah.
doesn't work.
Yeah. Your brain is showing you, look, that's proof.
That's proof it doesn't work. But here's one key thing I think that I want to make sure whoever listens to this to understand that oftentimes the problem is with the not enough phrasing is that we make it a personal thing. Like I am not enough. I'm valuing myself with this instead of separating it from myself, saying, okay, let's say my body currently isn't at the stage of getting
Mhm.
pregnant versus not, I'm as a whole person not capable of,
Right.
right?
Right. Like I was
And
actually protecting myself.
well, yeah, and there was somewhere a reason why it didn't happen, but it's not
Right.
you as a person to
Right.
separate ourselves from that, and being aware of that. Now I deal mainly with high performing leaders, and particularly it's more women than men, but men can be too, but that self-doubt and not feeling that they get really validated for their, and they need to really be up a notch, um especially when sometimes with the gender differences
Yeah.
can be very challenging, and thinking that we need to be a certain way, even not just equally but better than others,
Hmm.
and that can cause really a lot of the not enough talk
Hmm.
because of that high expectation we're putting on
Yeah.
ourselves.
I think imposter syndrome, it's talked about a lot. I think it's that term is thrown around a lot, but it's very true and valid. And I think you know, I think it's the same thing as, we feel like we're not enough. And it can show up in so many different areas of our lives where we wouldn't expect it to show up. And is that due to self-confidence? Is it due to, again, stories that we're telling ourselves? What's surrounding that? Because sometimes it just shows up and you're like, where's that even coming from?
Yeah. And yeah, it can be low self-esteem, but it can also be that you may not be surrounded by people that support you. We've
Yeah.
talked about community, right? So do you have a support system? Do you have the deeper connection with others that support you in a certain way in the things you do? So if you're on an island by yourself and you're not really among people that support you, then it may not be as much self-esteem, but it might be just you start questioning more because you don't have anybody who's in the same boat and can
Yeah, you
support
start
you.
just kind of like doing what
The
I call the
spiral.
spiral, right? Like you question something and you don't have anyone to question that with you. Like you don't have anyone to bounce that off of, and you just keep going like this. And I think it's very easy when you're in that to then cocoon yourself
Yeah.
and not go out and talk to people because you've made this, comfortable world around yourself. Like, well, I'm just not enough. And so this is my belief and I'm not leaving it. And this is what it is. But I think once you start going out and talking to people about it, safe people, I think they'll push back and make you question it. Like,
Yeah.
why would you think that?
And I think that is one big strategy. Besides, we said the first thing is you got to have first create that self-awareness, paying attention when these thoughts come up. But the other part, as far as a strategy on shifting, is finding that support, getting different
Mhm.
perspective, where somebody might be saying, "What are you talking about? Like you done, XYZ," and it's
Mhm.
that journey. So getting that support and having.
Well, and that can look like a lot of things, right? That can be your community, your friends, your family, but it also could be a coach or a therapist. And I think
Yeah.
oftentimes you might need someone outside of your circle because we all think, oh, well, my circle is going to tell me the things that they think I want to hear. But I think when you hear it from a therapist or a coach who, isn't part of your daily circle, I think when you hear it from them and they have some outside,
Perspective.
perspective, they might be able to push you a little bit further on that.
Well, and that's what we are, right? We're coaches
Right.
because that's what we do. We do help giving a different perspective by maybe asking different questions and to gain more clarity and awareness and also making the steps to where the shift needs to happen. I mean, that's our jobs. And yeah, sometimes a therapist is needed, but also I know it's such a killer tool. We've talked about it. Journaling.
Journaling.
Journaling, just super duper helpful, important. There's lots of research, and we're laughing because if you watch our other episodes, it is a strategy that just
It
works.
really,
It really
so
works.
so there's some good things I think when it comes to this. I think there's some good things about journaling, and I think it could also be detrimental. And I'll tell you
Okay,
that.
I love that.
I think it's good because I think it can really help you move those feelings out of your body. And I think you can really start questioning things. But I think there is research to show this. If you're going to journal too much on a problem, like over 15 minutes, you're going to go into that spiral. Um, and I think it could have more of a negative impact. So I think if you're journaling for too long and you're journaling negatively for too long at one time, over a period of time or days, I think that can be detrimental.
Yep, yep.
So I think there is a good way to journal and a negative way to journal. And I think, the more positive way to journal would be to, you know, I wouldn't do it for more than 10 minutes. And I don't even think it would just be all negative things. I think you really have to focus on, okay, questioning these
Mm-hmm.
beliefs.
Yeah. Like where you maybe put them all out for like 5 minutes, what you have, and then go. So it's not just, yeah, thank you for pointing that out. It's not just about constantly being negative. The journaling is to gain clarity. So when you put those out, let's say 5-10 minutes, whatever it takes to get all the emotions and thoughts out, then taking a look and go like, is that really true?
Right.
And then figuring out, is that serving me? Is that not serving me? How does it look? And then journal on that.
And where did that thought come from?
And where does that thought come from? And then next one is, we can always change the thoughts. We have to believe them. And so we can journal on that as well as for shifting the thoughts. So that can be.
That's where growth mindset comes in. And we talked about that before. That's where the whole growth mindset, where you're not stuck in that negative thinking. It's like, okay, well, this may be how I was raised. These may be ideas that I've been raised with or been taught. And I can change that. And I know I can change it. And then journaling on that.
Yep. And let's say, for example, somebody putting down like, I'm not smart enough, right? To rephrase it, to think about how can I rephrase that? And with the growth mindset, it would be, hey, I'm always learning and I'm improving, and it's a journey. So,
and maybe you aren't smart. I mean, listen, when it comes to things like finances, I am not smart enough on that. And I know I can learn it.
And you can figure it out. So I might not be at the level that I need to know right now, but I can learn and progress and improve, and can be understanding everything better when it comes down to finances.
Yeah. I mean, I used to know nothing about healing and trauma.
Yeah.
And now like I've learned a lot, and now that's my specialty.
Yeah. And then another thing is, I think too, is like when a lot comes up, social media can be a problem because of comparison.
Yeah.
And if we're recognizing that, hey, you know what, I'm like, they have whatever, this fancy house, and why do they have that and I don't? Or they go on the trip, and oh my God, these other people can go on a trip and I can't go on a trip, or whatever. And I don't have enough money to go on the trip. And the social comparison, there's research out, makes us unhappy. And to recognize that, and one strategy for that is to possibly eliminate some social media time, because if we keep doing that too long and it keeps popping up, when we have that awareness, you know what, limit your social media time. That's also, by the way, comparison up or down. There's research out, if you compare up, meaning like I'm sorry, which way is which way? One is you compare yourself with where the up is like, hey, they are not, I can't do this travel, or I can't do whatever these other people are doing, and I wish I could. The other one is when you do, like, say you watch TV shows or social media too, where you go like, oh, I'm better than that. They don't have this, but I do have that. That comparison also makes us unhappy. So there's research out that either direction of the comparison,
That's interesting.
Where you even think you have more than the other, side note, is actually not making you happy either. So it's not always the other direction with I don't have enough. But that was side comment right now.
There's a famous quote. I don't know who said it, but comparison is the thief of joy.
Oh, that's a good one.
And I don't remember who said it, but look it up. But it's true, right? Like when we compare ourselves to other people, like you said, up or down, it's because we can compare to everyone. We can compare ourselves to everyone. No one has it perfect.
And that's why gratitude is so important, to practice gratitude and be present in the moment, and just really take a moment and appreciate where you're at, what you have, what you have accomplished, where you've been, where you've now, and just really appreciating and really connecting that to emotions is very important. So practicing gratitude, connecting that with how you're feeling, can hugely shift your emotions.
And gratitude can be hard when you're going through something difficult. It can be really hard to reach gratitude. It just seems kind of out of out of grasp at that point. So and I say this a lot, it's finding the small things to be grateful for. It's not oh, I'm so grateful for this vacation or whatever. I'm really grateful that I had this amazing cup of coffee and blah, blah, blah. Something as small like that, or I'm so grateful that I got to walk my son to school today. Just
Yep.
small things like that are where we're going to find, I think, more growth than in the big things.
Yeah. And also another strategy, I think, very good one is once that spiral starts, right? I'm not good enough, or, what if now I'm not good
Anxiety.
enough, and you're starting to spiral down. Change your environment, change
Yeah.
where you're at, just, you know,
And you're not
change,
going to want to when you're in the middle of it.
yeah,
You're not going to want to.
but change your physical state will change your mental state.
Mhm.
Get outside, go for a walk, change the
Yeah.
room you're in, surround yourself with, we said, positive people, or take yourself out of negative people. Change
Call a
your
friend, go
environment.
for a walk, like
Change your
put
environment.
on your favorite podcast or music and go do laundry. Go, like, whatever it is, just leave where you were.
Uh, yep. And I do think one big thing that I had to learn over the years too is a little bit more self-compassion, to really acknowledge ourselves, to like I said, what we've accomplished, how far we've come, and small things matter, and just being also kind to ourselves. Like, yeah, you know what? Like, maybe my ambitions or my expectations that I had don't really line up with what else is going on in life. It's not,
Maybe it's
maybe it
going to
wasn't
take longer.
realistic. Maybe it takes longer than in the mind, and being a little more compassionate. And that's something I'm still working on.
Well, you and I both work with that because we're growing businesses while raising families.
Yep.
And there's steps forward, but there's a lot of steps backward as well. Like sometimes you have to pause things and sometimes you need to take a break or you got to go pick up a sick kid from school.
Yeah.
Like I had
It's
to yesterday. Like,
being more kind to ourselves is definitely super important when we're talking about the negative thoughts of not enough, because it's very easy to very quickly, when things aren't going as planned in our head, to fall into that trap. But I
and
think
that's
those,
again when you ask, is this true?
is this true?
Is this thought
Exactly.
true?
And looking into, is that even realistic, right? The things that I'm expecting to be a certain way, is that even realistic, of when I'm looking at what are the roles I'm
Mhm.
playing? Is that like, I always say, like, we can't be all super people, right? Superman, superwoman, whatever. We think we can, but we can't.
No,
And it's not helpful if we're not realizing, you know what? No, it's like, I'm me. I'm not comparing myself to somebody who doesn't have kids, or somebody who, has other circumstances, other opportunities. We need to stop that comparison in order, and just to kind of look at, here, this is where I'm at. This is what's realistic for me. And then kind of be really more kind to ourselves and acknowledge where we're at.
yeah. I think that's probably one of the most beneficial steps to take,
Yeah. So
most
it
positive
starts with
steps
the
to take.
awareness, all the way through the self-compassion.
Yeah.
Lots of
And
great,
self-compassion comes, with a lot of different things. So
yeah. So
we just need to learn to do that more.
lots of great lots of great strategies. But definitely something that needs to be addressed, because if we're not addressing those thoughts, then that does have an impact on our health, our well-being, on our relationships, on our performance, on reaching our dreams and goals, and longer living, really.
Yeah.
So it needs to be addressed. And if you love this topic, oh God, if you love this topic, if you love,
Talkic is actually a really good new word. I like that one.
If you love this topic, we've recorded actually an episode about negative thoughts. And I think that would be a really good one to watch if you
Yeah.
are struggling with this. There might be some other little nuggets for you.